$12.47. That's your balance. Not your savings, your balance. You check it at 11:43 p.m., lying on a second-hand mattress you bought from some stranger on Facebook Marketplace because the springs in your old one finally gave out. The screen glows in the dark room. You refresh at 11:44. Still $12.47. You have $31,000 in student loans, $4,200 on a credit card you swore you'd pay off last month, and a direct deposit that hits Friday but is already earmarked for rent, groceries, and that one bill you keep pushing. You're 23. You whisper to yourself, "I'm not behind." But every trip to the grocery store feels like a strategic military operation. You put the good olive oil back on the shelf and grab the store brand. It tastes fine. Mostly. This is what zero feels like. Not dramatic. Not a movie montage with sad music. Just a low, constant hum of arithmetic running in the back of your mind while you try to live your life. You split a streaming password with someone you don't even really like anymore because canceling feels like defeat. You watch your bank app more than your group chats. You know your account number by heart. You move $200 into savings like a little victory, then move it right back 3 days later when the car makes a weird noise or your phone screen cracks. Money at this level isn't a tool. It's the air you breathe. Either you have enough or you're already suffocating, and sometimes you can't even tell which one it is. The first rule at zero: your relationship with money is entirely emotional. And emotional decisions? They compound, but usually in the wrong direction. You get a raise. Not life-changing, just $6,000 a year before taxes. It lands as about $387 extra per month. For one glorious afternoon you feel rich. You treat yourself to takeout. Then the car needs $900 in brakes and rotors. Welcome back to reality. You learn the brutal truth: expenses expand to fill whatever space you create for them. Lifestyle inflation doesn't announce itself with Trump. It sneaks in through, deserves, and just this once. But you keep going. You pay off the smallest credit card, $1,200. You screenshot that beautiful $0 balance and stare at it in your car for 10 minutes. You don't send it to anyone. Who would understand? That screenshot isn't just a number. It's proof that a decision you made moved something in the right direction for once. That moment is everything. It's the first crack of light. You cross $10,000 in savings at 26. First time you've ever seen 5 figures that belong to you. You check the balance constantly that first week, not out of fear this time, but pure disbelief. You don't touch it. You just let it sit there like a fragile newborn. The psychological weight of that $10,000 feels bigger than the number itself. You feel like you've crossed into a different category of human being. You haven't. Not yet. But the feeling matters. That's when you start reading. Not the fluffy motivation stuff. Real books about how money actually moves in the world. You learn what an index fund is. You open a brokerage account and stare at the buy button for 3 weeks before you finally put in $1,500. The market dips the next day. Your stomach drops. You almost sell everything. But you don't. That single decision, to sit with the discomfort, is the moment fear stops running your life. You're making $68,000 a year now. You've got $40,000 saved. A Roth IRA you actually contribute to every month. On paper, you're doing everything right. Max the 401k. Build the emergency fund. Avoid lifestyle creep. You feel stable. Competent. Then one midnight you sit down with a spreadsheet and run the honest projections, all the way out to retirement. You stare at the final number after 40 years of disciplined saving at your current trajectory. It's fine. It's enough to survive. But it's not what you want. Not even close. This is the competence plateau. You've gotten really good at surviving. You're not yet good at building. And the second rule hits you like a truck: salary is a ceiling dressed up as a floor. Once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. So you start a side project. You don't even call it a business at first. It's just something you tinker with on weekends. It makes $400 one month. Then $900. Then $1,700. You don't tell your employer. You barely tell anyone. You reinvest every dollar back into it for 14 straight months. Same lunches. Same old car. No upgrades. Your net worth creeps past $80,000, then $110,000. You start feeling the gap, the difference between where a salary would have taken you and where you're actually going. That gap is where leverage lives. Your investments returned $3,800 in a single year while you slept. Some months your side income beats your actual paycheck. For the first time, you own something real, an asset. Something that can earn while you're doing other things. Your relationship with time completely changes. Every hour spent on something that doesn't compound feels like theft from your future self. You hit $150,000 net worth at 32. You've got a rental property with $44,000 in equity, a brokerage account at $61,000, and a business doing $6,200 a month. You still drive the same car. You still don't talk about money much. You've noticed that mentioning it at this level makes people act strange, envious, dismissive, or weirdly competitive. None of it helps. You start saying no. Really saying no. To the destination wedding that would require liquidating investments. To the group trip where the costs are split equally, and you'd be quietly subsidizing others. To the business opportunity, pitched by a friend who doesn't understand cash flow. The friction in those relationships is real. You feel it. But you protect your capital anyway. You stop spending money to maintain connections and start protecting it to buy options. At $300,000, your money starts developing a personality. It has preferences. It wants to flow towards certain places and resists others. You've had one investment return $22,000 in 8 months. You've had another lose $9,400. You don't panic on the loss. You understand now that this is the cost of admission to the game. You reposition. You keep going. This is what people at the bottom rarely understand about the top. It's not about avoiding risk. It's about choosing which risks are worth sitting with, and having the discipline to sit. The third rule: below $500,000 you're still buying assets. Above it, assets start buying each other. You can feel yourself approaching that threshold the same way you feel weather changing. $670,000. $810,000. You restructure the business twice. Bring on a partner. Exit one investment, and roll everything into something bigger. You're 36. Net worth, $920,000. Sleep gets lighter. Not from stress exactly, from intensity. You're running scenarios in the shower. Sending 5:30 a.m. emails to people in different time zones. You turn down a $210,000 salary offer. Your parents don't understand. You don't fully explain. It just didn't feel right. Then it happens on an ordinary Tuesday. Your brokerage updates. $1,040,000. You sit with it quietly. You thought you'd feel fireworks. There's satisfaction, yes? But almost immediately the practical voice returns. $1 million at 4% safe withdrawal is $40,000 a year. That's not freedom. That's a starting point. The real identity crisis isn't unhappiness. It's realizing happiness was never the point. The milestone was never the destination, it was proof of concept. You quietly drift away from the old events. The startup meetups, the finance happy hours. Not out of contempt. You just don't need them anymore. You're having different conversations now, in smaller rooms with fewer people and no name tags. At $2.3 million, money stops being a source of anxiety. It becomes a resource, like time, like attention. You don't check your checking account balance anymore. You think in allocation. Where is the capital positioned? What's its return profile? What am I missing? You hire a wealth manager, then fire him when you realize you know more about your own situation. You find someone sharper. Someone who charges more, talks less, and has clients you've actually heard of. Your business hits $4.1 million in revenue. 2 rental properties with $380,000 combined equity. Portfolio at $1.6 million. You're not rich in the way people brag at dinner parties. You're wealthy in the way that actually matters. You have time. Real time. You take a 3-week trip and don't check email for 5 full days. That freedom, the ability to disappear without everything falling apart, is something money at lower levels simply cannot buy. The 4th rule: wealth is not what you accumulate. It's what you no longer have to do. At $5 million, the texture of the game changes. It's no longer primarily about building. It's about positioning. You're moving capital more than working for it. You're in a deal expected to return $800,000 in 18 months. You're in another that might return nothing. You understand the difference, and you're in both anyway, because one de-risks the other. Correlation is the real trade. This kind of thinking would have been incomprehensible to you 4 years earlier. You start spending time around people at $20 million, $50 million. You study how they think, not just what they own. The patience is longer. They're not trying to win every hand. They're trying to stay at the table longer than everyone else. You stop talking about money with people who don't have any. Not out of arrogance, out of accuracy. The conversations become imprecise. People project their own meanings onto numbers that don't carry those meanings. At this level, $500,000 is a position size. It is not a life changing sum. Saying that out loud in the wrong room makes you a villain. So you don't say it. $14 million. You walk into rooms you used to only read about. Not flashy celebrity rooms, rooms where decisions actually get made. A family office managing $600 million wants to co-invest with you. A private equity firm calls looking for operating partners. You're at the table because your capital and your pattern recognition are genuinely useful. That feeling of earned power is different from anything you knew before. The 5th rule: at $10 million, your reputation becomes a financial instrument. It starts earning returns independent of your daily decisions. You make choices that would have felt morally complicated 5 years ago. A portfolio company restructures and lays off 140 people. You know the CFO personally. You don't call him. You review the cap table and you hold. The margins improve. Your position gains value. You don't feel good about it. You don't feel bad about it for long. You feel the growing distance, the widening gap between decisions and their human consequences. You don't resist it. You observe it. Your net worth crosses $30 million at 54. You have structures that will outlive you, trusts, a foundation that costs $800,000 a year but also opens doors. You're invited places because of what you represent and what you can write a check for. You understand this clearly. You've stopped pretending about most things. Pretending wastes energy, and energy is the one currency that doesn't automatically compound. The machine no longer needs your full presence. It needs your positioning. You could step away for 6 months and it would keep running. That was always the point. At $80 million, the isolation isn't exactly loneliness. It's something quieter. Your closest friends now operate at the same altitude, not by design, but by natural selection of conversation. Topics like fund structures, regulatory positioning, dynasty trusts, and secondaries simply don't translate to people from earlier chapters of your life. You haven't become a different person. Your context has just become nearly untranslatable. You give more than ever. Not for reputation or tax benefits, though those exist. You give because at this level money has stopped measuring anything meaningful about you. Giving is one of the few things that still feels like a real decision, like it carries weight. The 6th rule: above $50 million, money stops measuring your worth. It starts measuring your reach. You're 61 now. Net worth around $94 million. The exact number is known to maybe 3 people. You haven't had a conventional job in 9 years, but you've never stopped working. You think in cycles now: demographic cycles, infrastructure cycles, credit cycles. You position ahead of them the way an experienced sailor reads weather days in advance. Sometimes you're wrong. Being wrong at this level means a position underperforms by a couple hundred basis points. You rebalance. Your life doesn't change. There's a board meeting. 5 people in a room with enough combined capital to reshape a mid-sized economy. You speak for 4 minutes. Ask 2 questions. The room moves around those questions. You leave before lunch. This is power at its most distilled, no spectacle, just quiet calibration to your position. And somewhere right now, a 24-year-old is opening his banking app. Balance, $12.47. He's standing in the grocery store doing the same math you once did. He puts the good coffee back and grabs the store brand. He thinks this whole thing is just a story about making more money. He doesn't know yet what actually has to change. Not in dollars, but in distance. In identity. In the quiet trades you make with yourself along the way. The machine doesn't ask if you're ready. It doesn't check your emotional preparedness. It opens every single morning and takes whoever shows up consistently, patiently, without flinching, without stopping to ask the questions everyone else is asking. The money compounds. The habits compound. The perspective compounds. And so does everything else. The balance is $12.47. It always starts there. It always will. This is the long game. The real one. Not the highlight reel. Not the filtered version. The late nights, the quiet no's, the spreadsheets at midnight, the fear you sat with, the assets that eventually started working for you. Every single person who makes it through the early suffocating arithmetic eventually looks back and realizes the journey wasn't just about the number in the account. It was about who you had to become to hold that number without it destroying you, or letting it define you. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep showing up. Keep learning. Keep choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. The compound curve is patient, but it is merciless to those who quit early and incredibly generous to those who stay in the game. So if you're at $12.47 right now, breathe. You're exactly where the story starts. The same place it started for everyone who eventually reached the higher altitudes. The air is thin up here, the conversations are different, and the view is worth every single calculation you're making tonight.